Hello and welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Ronnie Dahl in the studios of Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM, our flagship TV and radio stations on our family of TV, radio, and other media outlets. In addition, today, as always, we're joined in Birmingham, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, and the village of Franklin on Birmingham area municipal access, and on 88.1 WBFH out of Bloomfield Hills. That's the service of the Bloomfield Hills School District. Online, as always, CivicCenterTV.com. Watch us on our Watch Live link on our homepage or the small player that's on our homepage as well. And today on Facebook, via Facebook Live, we're joined by our good friends over at the West Bloomfield Township Clerk's Office, and thank Clerk Debbie Binder and her team for joining us today on this edition of the Oakland County Megacast. And as always, with me in the Lakes FM studios is Ronnie Dahl.
That's a lot to get to at the beginning of the show there, Tyler.
It is. It's quite a lot of details, but you know, it's the same thing every day. So yeah, it's tough to get it wrong.
There you go. Hey, that's Tyler's way of saying that's what makes us the Megacast. We're pretty much everywhere that you could want to watch. I think more and more people, though, now are doing things online. I will say, so I come into the studio just before the show, and one of the reasons is because we don't have cable here. Mm-hmm. In the office, so I always watch the news before I come in to make sure I'm up to date on everything that's going on. It drives my husband crazy, though, by the way. I'm a channel flipper. Mm-hmm. And so watching news with people that come from news, very irritating. So I have it pretty much down as to when everyone's going to be hitting their big headlines. So it's like you jump from ABC to NBC to Fox 2 local. Mm-hmm. And then back to CBS. And it's like this little dance, right? Because I don't know if people ever notice this, but everyone hits commercials at the same time. Right. It's called clicks. They're trying to make sure that it's for the ratings and how they monitor the ratings. So you usually have to be in a break by a certain time. And so if you notice, that's one of the reasons why if you're watching all the news channels and you switch from one station to the other, and they all hit weather around the same time, they all hit news or the commercial breaks around the same time, it's because they're trying to hit their clicks for the ratings. But yeah, so I always have to try to watch as much news as possible. And today, for some reason, I overslept. We use Alexa as our alarm clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. And I must have told Alexa, shut up, because Alexa went off and Trixie let me sleep. And so when you oversleep, you're kind of like, I'm a little out of it. I mean, I did most of my headlines and all my work last night, but still, it sets your routine off in the morning.
Yeah, you got to have that routine in the morning and kind of stick to it. Otherwise, it does kind of throw you off. Whether you sleep too much and you're too well rested and your body's just like, what's going on? Why am I so energized today? Or it's or it's something else that just throws off your morning routine, and then you just feel out of place, and some things can fall through. So you got to stick to that morning routine. Every little change can have an impact, not really a big one, but enough to be annoying.
So is that something like we all pretty much have?
I think
a pretty big routine in the morning. Everyone, is your routine the same every day?
I don't know if it's the same every single day, but it's pretty similar, and little changes are tough to navigate sometimes, and especially when you're trying to change your morning routine to be different. That also is something that has a lot of growing pains with it also.
Yeah. So, but with that though, I went a little casual today because I was like, I'm just not feeling it. Mm-hmm. I mean, how many different combinations of a suit jacket and a shirt can a person have?
Exactly. And you know what? We're a different kind of news show, too. We don't have to always be so formal with everything, because we do things a little more informally on this particular program. So, sometimes it's all right.
Hey, I hope everyone got out to enjoy the weather. It was a little cloudy yesterday, but it was still warm. But the rain is coming today.
Yeah, the rain's coming today. I think it was initially forecast it was going to be in here yesterday. And
right?
It was a little bit, but it wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be yesterday. And then it obviously didn't pass through. It came a day late. It was a little bit of rain yesterday, but mostly sunny, a little clouds throughout the day. But today it's definitely going to be raining all day, periodically, and definitely through the night.
So I was waking up my husband because I said, hey, today's going to be a good day to take your dog to the park because the rain's coming. And they're saying we could get up to an inch, but we're also going to have like 50 mile per hour wind gust. And of course, we just put all of our spring lawn furniture and pillows and everything out, so they'll have to come in tonight. But I'm like, hey, take Trixie to the park now, because it's going to be muddy for the next couple of days if we get as much rain as they are anticipating. But it is true. Like, I know they said we were going to get rain Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and it was like a drizzle.
Yeah, I was thinking from those forecasts that Wednesday was going to be the worst of it. Thursday and Friday we're going to be, all right, still some rain. It's a little bit annoying. It's sticking around for a few days, but it won't be as bad. You'll still get a lot of sun, but it seems to have flipped itself on its side a little bit, Ronnie.
Well, with that too, though, it's okay. I used to do weather back in the day. I was horrible. I was so bad. But it was the only job that they had open in Lansing, and you had to do weather on the weekends and then report 3 days out of the week. And I said, sure, I can do weather. How hard can it be? And we want to let you know, most of them aren't forecasting the forecast. Everyone does pretty much, they're members of the National Weather Service, and they put out the big predictions and this, that, and the other, and you kind of, for the most part, they'll go by that. So if you look at the news and you see everyone kind of has the same forecast, a lot of that has to come from the National Weather Service. But when we're in severe weather, you really, really, really want to be listening to, like, you know, a full-blown meteorologist. And I will say Rich Luderman is the man here in Detroit. He used to be in the military. I don't know if a lot of people knew that, and had to predict the weather for the military. There's a lot of pressure there, but he's so funny too, by the way. He should be a stand-up comic.
Yeah, he's great. I enjoy watching his reports. I don't think I have met him before, but I have heard that he's a really funny guy. And it is tough for meteorologists too, because they get a lot of flack from people. Oh, you can be wrong. You're wrong most of the time, and you still can keep your job. Ha ha ha. When it is really it is true, but at the same time, you're predicting the weather based on information you're getting from the National Weather Service and your knowledge of weather science in order to predict it for a specific area. When things can change, and a minor change in weather patterns can completely change an entire forecast, and those could happen in a matter of minutes that you're spending on the air giving a weather report that may no longer be fully accurate.
Well, you notice though, we never complain when the forecast turns out better.
Exactly.
Well, actually, that's not true. When they predict a bunch of snow and it doesn't happen, then people kind of get a little testy about all of that. But when they say, hey, it's going to rain, and we actually, like this past couple of days, we didn't get a lot of rain. It's been, cloudy, but there were peaks of sun that came through yesterday.
Yeah, it was actually a pretty nice day. When it wasn't raining outside, it was a really pretty nice day outside, and it's been like it had been the past few days, nice and sunny, a little bit of clouds, but warm, sunny, not too humid. It was a pretty nice day overall, despite the rain. So
I will admit, Tyler, we did take down our Christmas decorations, the lights.
Okay.
But
it's time.
I still have all of my winter greens in the pots. Because you get them, it's the big thing to do, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, well, if I take them out, there's nothing to replace them, and then the pots will be empty, and it won't look so nice. And they're not dead yet, so I figure I can keep them out. Yeah, why not? I mean, keep plants in the plant pots. At least have something in there. They still look nice. They're still decorative. They still are aesthetically pleasing, and they're still alive. What are you going to remove a live plant from a pot because it's a little out of season? Who cares? So maybe I should take out the pine cones and the holly and put like Easter eggs or something in there. Sure. Yeah, make it a little more festive. That sounds good. Yes. I'm sure my neighbors don't mind anyway. At least something's in there. Exactly. But when you have nice weather like we did yesterday, you see it. It's glaring at you like, not winter. But I will say the good thing, I do not have Christmas lights up. There are still people in our neighborhood with their Christmas decorations. They don't turn them on. Right. But they're still up. They're still up. There are a lot of people that keep their decorations from the holidays up for
a very, very long time. But, I think it's also a point where there's some point along the line between Christmas and the next year's holidays, where if you leave your decorations up at that point, you might as well leave it up until Christmas in July as a joke, and then take it down in July or early August. But by then, you're only a few months away anyway. So some of these people just decide, I'm going to put these up, and put all the effort into putting these up for what? A few days? I'll leave it up for 7 months.
Yeah. Go for it. But I do think our association has like some mandate. They have to be down by a certain time.
Well, they don't mow lawns, so who cares?
Exactly. I'm with you on that. Hey, so Tyler, younger people.
Yes. Uh-oh.
The younger crowd, although a little bit older than your crowd, there's an alarming trend emerging as coronavirus hospitalization rates in the state this month are surging among younger people, a group with the lowest vaccination rates among the state's populations. Now, this is according to patient data collected by the Michigan Health and Hospital Association, so different than the state Department of Health. The group said Wednesday that from March 1st through Tuesday, hospitalizations increased by 633% for those aged 30 to 39 and by 800% for those aged 40 to 49. Association's report said hospitalization rates decline as the vaccination rates per age group increases, underscoring the need for vaccinations. We get that. For example, hospitalizations are increasing by only 37% for those that are aged 80 and older, and in Michigan, 44% of the population of 80 and older are fully vaccinated right now. And so obviously you can see the correlation there. I'm from Ohio. I have a lot of Facebook friends. I worked in Ohio. Ohio has already opened up the vaccination program for all of their residents, and so I am seeing a lot of my friends and their kids, that qualify are already being vaccinated as well. So we're a little bit behind here in the state of Michigan, but as I said, I had a family member that signed up for Ford Field yesterday. They said it went great. Yeah, still a soft launch there, though.
Yeah, they're still getting their sea legs under them there in that operation. But at the same time, I've heard nothing but good things about it so far. That it's been moving relatively efficiently, and they're getting people vaccinated there relatively quick. So that's awesome news to hear from that mass vaccination site. Hopefully, we'll have similar good news in Oakland County when they begin their mass vaccination site here soon. And it's like this article says, and it's just an obvious fact of the matter that as vaccinations increase, the hospitalizations will decrease. Part of that is because one of the main goals of the vaccination process isn't to necessarily cure people from being susceptible to coronavirus, but from having serious symptoms that would require hospitalization. There have been people that have gotten COVID-19 vaccines and then had become COVID-19 positive. The purpose of these vaccines, among everything else, is to limit the hospitalizations and lower the chance that you are going to contract the virus again. So definitely concerning that there's been such a big spike among these age groups, 30 to 39 and 40 to 49, but we've been seeing a spike in the state of Michigan that has been concerning over the last few weeks, and I think we're at a point now where if it doesn't start to turn back toward where we were going, that we could see some action from the state.
So, and we should keep in mind too, they don't release all of the numbers. Okay, right. So, an 800% increase, that could be 10 people. Right. They didn't release those numbers, so we need to keep that in perspective as well. Numbers are about perspective, and we've seen so many entities, including the state, they'll use the numbers in the way that they see fitting for their purpose. But with that as well, one thing about the Ford Field, you still can't pick and choose which vaccine you're getting. They're doing the Pfizer one there, but you don't get to pick and choose. So we're not to that level just yet, because I do think that is a little bit concerning for some people.
Sure.
When they pick and choose which one that they do want and which ones they don't want. I heard this morning on the radio when I was driving in, there are 149 known cases right now here in the state of Michigan where people were fully vaccinated. So it wasn't a situation where they had one shot and then in between they got COVID. I had a friend in Ohio who that happened to her. She's a school teacher. But we've had 149. They've been fully vaccinated, which means that they had the 2 doses, and then there was enough period passed from when they got the 2 vaccination for them to be considered fully vaccinated, and they still got COVID-19. So again, you can still get it. The vaccination's not 100%. And it's just like, I was talking to my husband yesterday. I said, well, we get the flu shot. You still get the flu.
Right.
So you can still get it. It's the big thing is, obviously, is that you don't have to be hospitalized, and it's not going to be as severe. But we do know the big concern right now, especially here in the state of Michigan, the variants.
Yeah, and I've said it in some other conversations with my family and with some friends that in this situation, in this particular pandemic, we've been lucky in the sense that the virus or the disease that went to pandemic proportions was something like COVID-19 that on a wider scale isn't as deadly as some other diseases or some other viruses that could spread in a pandemic form. But it's still, the biggest concern has been throughout this pandemic overwhelming the hospital systems. It's been near that point a couple of times. It's been very severe a few times throughout this pandemic. And so one of the main goals of this vaccination process is, as COVID-19 continues to spread, to limit the amount that spread becomes severe and hospitalizations need to be required, so that we don't overwhelm these systems and have to have shutdowns in place and other forms of regulations in place in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and put these hospitals in situations where they can't treat patients at an efficient rate.
So, and this is why these numbers matter. Beaumont has now reinstated the visitor restrictions because of the rising cases. So as cases of COVID-19 increase here in the state of Michigan, Beaumont Health System has reinstated visitor restrictions limiting who can see patients. The restrictions come just over a month after Beaumont loosened some visitor limitations. Now, the health system is following previous constraints by not allowing visitors for patients regardless if they have COVID-19, except for in extreme circumstances. Effective at 8 o'clock this morning, no one is going to be allowed in rooms of patients with pending or positive COVID-19 tests unless those patients are nearing the end of their life. Younger than 21, women in labor, or other extreme circumstances at all Beaumont campuses. Now, for patients who do not have COVID-19, one visitor may be allowed in certain situations. We have a list of those situations on our website, civiccentertv.com. Masks, though, keep in mind, are still going to be required in the hospitals regardless of a person's vaccination status. Exceptions apply only if a family member or friend screens negative for symptoms of respiratory infection. Beaumont said anyone younger than 16 is going to be restricted from visiting, except under extreme circumstances. Visitors cannot remain in waiting in public areas or cafeterias. So these restrictions are going to be in place until further notice. So when we go out and we continue to think because of the vaccinations, we put down our guard because we are all tired at this point in time. These are some of the things that we see happen because of that.
Yeah, and the hospital systems such as Beaumont, they're taking these precautions, not necessarily because they're at a point where they're being overwhelmed, but because the rate of positive cases in the state has been increasing steadily over the last several weeks. And we've had points such as people going on spring break and St. Patrick's Day celebrations, and then in a few weeks we'll have opening day. There are a lot of other circumstances coming into play where people do typically gather, and it could potentially have some additional spread of COVID-19. On top of that, we do have the B117 variant, the UK variant, in the state as well, and cases of that continue to be increasing. And so Beaumont is taking preventative measures in this case that aren't super severe, but they're on the way there, just to put themselves in a position where if things do take a turn for the worst in the state of Michigan on a larger scale level, that they're prepared beforehand and don't overwhelm themselves early.
So no surprise here, but the governor vetoed bills aimed at limiting health departments' emergency powers. Governor Gretchen Whitmer again vetoed legislation that would have put limits on the state's health department's ability to issue public health-related emergency orders Wednesday. The bill in question is Senate Bill 1. It would have capped any emergency orders issued by the Department of Health and Human Services to 28 days without legislative approval. Whitmer's veto did not come as a surprise, of course. She's frequently said she would not support efforts to curb her administration's powers, and she vetoed a similar bill last session. Slightly more than $347 million in COVID-19 testing funds was tied to Senate Bill 1 as part of a COVID-19 aid package signed into law by Whitmer earlier this month. We should keep in mind, though, this would actually go beyond her and this current administration, because this would make it law. So if a Republican is voted into office and we have a similar situation, it would impact them as well. And I think what the Republicans are trying to say is, hey, we get the powers in an emergency situation, but we are a democratic society. People vote us into office. We need to have a say in this process. But the governor has been very clear from the beginning that she is not going to support any of this legislation. There's an argument, too, that it should be up to our local health departments, because what's happening in the UP can be completely different than what's happening down here in Oakland County. And so by doing a statewide mandate, maybe that's not fair due to the region that you live in.
Yeah, there hasn't been a lot of things over the last year that have remained consistent for very long. The one thing that has is this continued argument and continued, frankly, childish spat between the governor's office and the legislature over these powers, with the governor claiming that the rationale behind this is A, to protect the state from COVID-19, but also for future executives in office to be able to make these kinds of declarations and these kinds of moves during a time of crisis such as a pandemic or something else, with the legislature arguing that the governor has completely shut them out of these decisions, which to some extent is correct. But the fact of the matter continues to be, both of these sides need to be doing their part to protect the state of Michigan and to move the state forward and prepare for the next crisis of this kind. And a complete refusal, both from the governor's office and the legislature, to meet either side midway there, especially on an issue as critical as the COVID-19 response and the future of emergency responses in the state of Michigan, it has really been the one thing from our state leadership that has not changed or has not been modified in the slightest over the last year.
Yeah, the two, it's called compromise.
It is.
We all have to live in this world of compromise, so compromise.
Right.
Even
if it's the slightest bit, find something that you can agree on in this. Even if you're inching forward on these issues, inch forward on them. I think the people would be would receive that a lot better than this continued, I'm keeping my powers, than the governor saying, I'm keeping my powers, and the legislature saying, well, you're completely shutting us out of these decisions. Also, we're not going to make any decisions that we have the right to make.
Yeah, so we should note that while, she did officially lose the powers.
Correct.
With that state Supreme Court ruling, she still oversees the health department. That's pretty obvious between her and Gordon. They didn't get along, and he left. So people put people in certain positions that are going to support them in their narrative, and when they don't, it's goodbye. So even though we saw that change in the law, it's still pretty much everyone knows that the governor is controlling what's happening in the health department right now. So as always, you can find the latest headlines. Go to civiccentertv.com. Just click on the coronavirus tab. That's where we list the headlines each and every morning. And then, of course, right there, you can also get the direct links to the CDC, the state of Michigan. Oakland County is a good one for people to check each and every day, because they also have the dashboard up there. But I like to check their news, see what's going on here locally in our community. We have a good show ahead of you for you on this Thursday. When we come back, we're going to be speaking with the owner of Back to the Past Collectibles. those. And then also in the 10 o'clock hour, we'll be joined with the founder and executive director of MoGo. And they're expanding. But you're going to love her story, and hopefully it inspires you as well. And then in the 11 o'clock hour, we'll be speaking with the CEO of MedNetOne Health Solutions. We've seen a lot of changes to the healthcare industry due to the pandemic, and it'd be interesting to get her take on how things are going, but also what could be possibly sticking around when we work our way out of this pandemic. We'll also be speaking with the chief of police in the city of Royal Oak. And then, of course, our good friend Brenda Lawrence will be joining us here at the end of the show. A lot going on out of D.C. that we want to catch up with her. So that's coming up. But first, this short break on the Oakland County Megacast.
COVID-19 has caused many families to fall behind on finances and on groceries. But you're not alone. You shouldn't have to worry about putting food on the table. MyBridges offers access to quality food and income assistance to help families across the state get the food support they need. It's easy to apply and easy to start shopping. Apply for services at michigan.gov/MIBridges. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Over a decade ago, the journey to a COVID vaccine began. Building upon research on other coronaviruses, scientists continued with months of research and development, 3 phases of clinical trials with tens of thousands of diverse volunteers, then peer review and authorization to deliver a safe and effective vaccine that will protect all of us. Discover the facts for yourself at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine.
Great to have you with us here on the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl in the studios alongside Mr. Tyler Keefe. As always, you can catch us Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon, live. Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. If you have cable, thank you. Channel 15 on Comcast, 99 on AT&T. You can also listen to us on the radio if you're out driving around, or if you still have one of those old school transistor radios. My husband has one of those. 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. And if you, by chance, don't catch the show live, you can watch reruns throughout the day, but also you can view the previous Megacast in its entirety or just the individual interviews by going to civiccentertv.com. You know, right now is a good time to be a collector. Because of the pandemic, a lot of people are selling things and other people are buying things. With us now, C. Scott Lovejoy. He's the owner of Back to the Past Collectibles. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Tell us more about your store.
Well, we just recently moved into the Wixom area. We used to be in Livonia, and we moved up here in November, and we've been really enjoying this community. And what we do is we specialize in helping families evaluate and then bring to market their collections. And so we work with people that might be downsizing or clearing out, just getting some room back, moving the storage unit. And as you say, the pandemic has created a lot of interesting opportunities with this, where there are a lot of people clearing things out. But interestingly, I think because they're not going to the ball game or the bar or whatever, there's some expendable income there that they're looking for things to spend it on. And so some collectible values this year have really skyrocketed. We specialize in the pop culture realm, so we handle things like comic books, vinyl records, old toys, movie posters, coins. It's a pretty wide net. We don't really handle general antiques, but a lot of interesting things come through here.
So when you guys were in Livonia, were you kind of more like almost like that big warehouse setting where you went up and down the aisles and looked? When
we were in Livonia, we had about 4,000 square feet, and it was set up to be a little bit more retail. But yes, we definitely have always had we get big collections in, and as we're sorting through them, we just kind of spread everything out as we're working through them. So there definitely was opportunity to kind of come and look at these boxes being opened and see what kind of stuff was being revealed. I find that to be like one of the really fun things as far as what we do. We might open a box that hasn't been opened in 50 years. So it's that fun moment of saying, what's in here? What's going to pop out? And it could be completely worthless, or it might be a treasure. We don't know.
I think I've been in your store before because, it's pretty well known. My husband's a crazy comic book collector. So I, know a little bit about your world. I pretend like I'm listening. Let's just say that. Yes, baby, that's great.
We appreciate your support.
You know what he likes to do is I'll walk into the bathroom and he'll take down whatever picture I have up and just randomly hang comic book pictures like that he has. I'm like, that does not go there. It's like he waits to see how long it takes me. I'm like, you have one room only.
What do you mean? It goes with everything. It goes with every decor. I don't know what you mean.
It's very colorful.
Mm-hmm, right.
But with that too, how do people know? How do they know if what they have is worth something or it's just junk?
That's the $1 million question, and that we work with people on the whole spectrum. We worked with people who are really, maybe a loved one's passed away and they have to deal with what's in the house or whatever, and they literally don't have the first idea on what's there. And so we're starting at that square one and helping them figure that out. It's an important part of our mission, I think, when we're helping people like that, to educate them as far as what's there. But then we work across the spectrum with people who are, like your husband, would be very, very into it, know exactly what it was. And that end of the market tends to be pretty familiar with what they have and what it's worth. And so it's a completely different conversation than when we're trying to work through things like that. There's obviously tools online. A lot of people use eBay as a price check, which has its pluses and minuses. But there's other sites as well in terms of helping to figure out what things are worth. But the interesting thing about when you get into entertainment-based things like comic books or movie items or toys or things like that, there is also a lot of sentimentality. And people tend to want to assign a lot of value to something because it's very important to them. And that doesn't necessarily always translate.
See Scott Lovejoy with us here on the Megacast. He's the owner for Back to the Past Collectibles. How has the internet and sites like eBay changed your world and the world that you operate in?
It helps in terms of the fact that there is this sort of giant garage sale always going on that is eBay, and when we can go out there and we use it and we sell things there, and so it's great you can put something on eBay and I'm not even sure what their
You froze up.
Is now, but it's hundreds of millions of eyeballs. That's great. Am I here? Uh-oh.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You froze up for just a second, but you're back now.
All right. So I'm not sure how much of that you got, but I was going to say that the downside sometimes for us is that because eBay is so accessible, there is a sentiment that people can think, well, I could just do this myself. And we find that that tends to be true if you have an item that is what we would consider a gem, something that's really strong, really popular, it's worth a lot of money. It is very easy to snap a few photos of it, throw it on eBay, and get that and go, wow, that was easy. But most collections don't tend to be that. Most collections tend to be, there might be some stuff like that, but then there's a lot of mid-grade stuff and a lot of low-end stuff. And so when you open up a storage unit, I mean, it's a dream come true if every item in there is a $1,000 item, but that's not generally what happens. And so when it comes to working through the whole collection, what we find is that passion for selling something on eBay is great as long as you're getting that huge return on one item. But when it starts getting into the work, there's a lot of work. You're essentially running your own store. You're handling customer service. You're shipping every day. You're answering questions. It gets to Texas and they don't like how you described it and they want to send it back. And you are really in the process of running a store. And we find most people's interest in eBay kind of fades after a while of doing that kind of work because they realize how much work it really is.
And so with that, because we are in the middle of the pandemic, it's changed. This has been a roller coaster, and up and a down and an up and a down, and hopefully we're coming on the back side of this. But what changes have been made in your industry because of this?
What's interesting is we run live auctions, which aren't eBay. It's our own platform. And we would have people in the room with the bidder cards and the whole 9 yards. And since the pandemic hit, we haven't had any in-room events like that. And whereas, what we refer to as the before times, we would have a lot of people who might be of the, kind of the crusty old guy who's like, I'm not getting online. I want to be in person. That's all there is. I'm not, especially in coins, when we did coin auctions, there'd be a lot of people who would say, I'm not getting online. I'm not doing that. But essentially what this year has done, you see it with Zoom, all the people who now know how to use Zoom who never would have before. But it's the same thing with these types of events. People who would have never gotten online are now in that online community. They know how to use the tools. And so it's whereas a year ago in March when this was rolling in, we had our moment of like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Is the economy going to fall? Are all these values going to fall? How's this going to affect what we do? And weirdly, it's been one of the strongest years for collectible values we've ever seen. There's things just lighting up that shock us for how much some things are selling for right now. But I believe that it's because it forced everybody, if you want to be in this world, you've got to be online. And it kind of put everybody in the same pool. So it's interesting how it kind of supercharged the collectibles market.
It really is interesting. And I'm wondering, though, how do you do an online auction when everyone has a different computer, everyone has a different internet, and it freezes, just like it did a moment ago with you. And we see it consistently. But when you're in the middle of an auction, that could be a little devastating.
Yes, especially when it's online only. If you have some mishap like that and it shuts it down, that immediately impacts your revenue stream. So that's not a good thing. But I honestly, there's been a couple of gaps and glitches here and there, but we've been very fortunate. We haven't had any massive outages or anything that's really affected us this year. So that's been good.
That is good. See Scott Lovejoy with us here on the Megacast. He's the owner of Back to the Past Collectibles. They have recently relocated to Wixom. Is your store reopened to the public right now?
It is, but as what we mostly do is get collections in, we sort and process and get them listed online. The great majority of what we do really is through online access, through eBay and through our live auction platform. But we are open at this location on Wednesdays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. So if you ever want to come by and take a look and just kind of see the sorts of things we carry, we do have a small showroom here open to the public. But we have a 12,000 square foot building now. And we love this place, by the way. We love being in Wixom. It's just a great location. We're real happy to be here. And most of our facility here is dedicated to processing and sorting and listing and shipping things out. So kind of when you come in, it's almost like, it's a bit like when you stand outside the window in the fudge shop at Mackinac or Frankenmuth and you look through the window and you watch them making the fudge. That's kind of when you come in here, you can kind of watch the whole process of, you can like look across and see like what collection we're working on that really isn't for sale yet. So it's kind of a teaser as to what's coming.
That's a big teaser for comic book lovers. But with that too, what is the big thing? What is the next big thing people should be looking out for?
It's interesting right now that what we're finding from a lot of people who are clearing out storage units or houses is they're talking to their kids or their grandkids and they're saying, what is it you want? And they're getting the answer a lot of times, I don't want any of this. And so that's why a lot of things are coming to the market, because the younger generation really isn't looking for those things. But in any given era, there's this sort of window of nostalgia that rolls along, and it starts to enter in when someone's old enough to have some expendable income and think about things that mattered a lot to them from when they were a kid. And so they've got a fond memory of looking back on things, and so values start to go up because people start reacquiring some of those things that they remember. But then as that window rolls along and it ages, it peaks and then it starts to fall off. And we're finding it, for example, with Western items. 10, 20 years ago, there were certain items that from the Western things, Roy Rogers or Gene Autry, old pieces, and there were some very desirable pieces, and it was a huge market if some of these things popped up. And just in the last decade, we're just watching those prices go down and down and down because the number of people who currently have a fond memory for that stuff from those years, they're clearing their collections out or they're passing away or whatever. So there's always that back end to that window. So as that window rolls along, that's kind of the trick is to look forward and say, what's everybody into now that's going to be interesting to them as they start to grow up and as they start to look back. And the other thing is to watch for areas where it's considered maybe a throwaway item. That's the big one, is if everybody keeps it because they think it's going to be worth a lot of money, it almost never is, because then everybody has one. What you're looking for are things that, people don't really consider a collectible or they're not hanging on to. And that's why we were just going through a collection and there was one of the most expensive items in the collection was an empty box because nobody kept the boxes for these action figures from the 1960s. The figures themselves are fairly easy to find, but to find the box is a rarity. So the box almost has more desirability than the figure does because they're so hard to find.
And the box in good condition. That's always key. and that too. Yeah. And these days, what we're really seeing is kind of an explosion in the interest in old video game cartridges. The video game stuff, Nintendo cartridges, some of those are pretty rare, especially, again, if you have the box and the brochure and all the pieces to it. Some Nintendo cartridges and other gaming systems, they can actually be very valuable. And that's kind of a new discovery. I mean, this is one of those places where years ago, it's like, this is old tech, it's junk, no one cares, throw it out, give it away. And because everybody did that and really not a lot of people held on to everything, all of a sudden video game cartridges are something that are more desirable now. See, you're not a good person for me to have a conversation with because my husband's a collector and a hoarder. And I'm like, get rid of this junk. And he's like, no, you don't understand. It's about the box. It's about this. It's about that. And I'm like, it's taking up space.
Yeah. And that's the battle, balancing that. How much space do you want to let get eaten up in order to save everything? So that's the two pieces to it. You don't want to get overrun by it.
Well, it's been great talking to you. Any last-minute advice for some of our listeners and viewers that are out there during this time?
It is kind of based on what you just said. I mean, the interesting thing is don't, if you're going through, you're in a situation where you have to sort of assess what's in a storage unit or assess what's in that back room in a house, and it's been piling up for years, and in the back of your head, one of these days I'll get to it. It is kind of important as you're looking at collections of things that you don't get too, you don't lean too hard towards just getting the dumpster and brooming it all out and throwing it away. We've had more than one situation where the person who owned the stuff was saying, I'm just going to throw it all away. And it was on its way to the curb. And someone else involved said, well, hang on, before you do that, let's just have someone look at it. And they give us a call and we come out, and the next thing you know, they have a check for $5,000 in their hand for something that was on its way to the trash bin.
Wow.
So my biggest advice would be just don't get too dismissive. All it takes is a phone call, snap a few photos, and we can pretty quickly say, yeah, you're safe letting that go, or now there might be some value here, it needs a closer look. So, don't get too dismissive of old piles of stuff.
And where can people find out more about your shop?
We are in the middle of upgrading our website. So the website that you'll go to kind of reflects a little more of like who we were about 10 years ago as opposed to like what we're mostly doing now. But our website is gobacktothepast.com. And our phone number here is 313-533-3130 is the number for the shop. So if you hit us up on the website or you give us a phone call, and we can very quickly help you navigate and find the best way towards whether you need a Brinks armored truck to collect all the money you're going to get for your stuff, or if you need a dumpster, we can help you figure that out.
That's awesome. Well, it's been such a nice conversation. Thank you for taking time to be with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
C. Scott Lovejoy with us. He's the owner of Back to the Past Collectibles. Check them out. I always love those shows, the antique show where people bring in stuff and then it's like they think it's junk. Oh, it's worth like, $50,000 or whatever. But we do have so many people right now because their jobs are going remote. They're able to move. And so they're clearing out stuff. And there's nothing like a move, Tyler, to make you clear out the crap that you have collected.
Yeah, a lot of people moving, a lot of people downsizing, and when that happens, you're going through all your belongings and things that have been in your closet for years or have been in storage in your basement for years. And sometimes, like C. Scott Lovejoy just said, you find stuff that is potentially really valuable, and as you're getting rid of it, somebody else may really want it.
So we're going to take a quick break here on the MegaCast. When we come back, excited for this next conversation, the founder and executive director of MoGo will be with us here on the MegaCast.
Hi, my name is Kurt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Parks COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
The only way to beat COVID-19 is to face it.
You can't get too comfortable.
You can't forget the danger.
Wear the mask. Wear the mask.
Wear the mask. Wash your hands.
Keep a safe distance.
Especially in the next few months.
You know we'll get back to normal.
We'll get back to normal. We'll get back to normal.
Someday.
But not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But not yet.
But not yet.
Consider virtual gatherings for the holidays.
Curbside food orders.
Grocery delivery.
And shopping local.
Shop local.
And especially shopping local.
Let's beat this virus. We can if we face it together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together. For the latest information, visit oakgov.com/COVID.
Welcome back to the MegaCast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in the studios alongside Mr. Tyler Keefe. Tyler, spring is in the air.
Yes, it's been really nice the last few days. It's going to continue to be pretty nice other than the rain going forward. So definitely looks like spring is here. Whether it's here to stay, we don't know just yet. It can still creep back up on us a couple more times, but we're well on our way, Ron.
We broke out our bikes last week. Great time. We're so lucky because we do live on the West Bloomfield Trail Network, so we can just walk out our backyard and hop on the bikes and go for a ride. My husband, a few years ago, won one of those Detroit bikes for me in an auction. It was for some nonprofit or something, and I love that bike. It looks so cool.
I have to see it to agree or disagree, but I will take your word for it.
But the one thing I don't like to do is actually put my bike on the back of my car to haul it to Detroit to go bike riding. Right. So one of the coolest things I think they have going on in the city of Detroit is the MoGo bikes. I worked a lot in Chicago over the past few years, and these bikes are everywhere. Yeah. They got me to and from, because a lot of times when you go and you travel to these cities, it's easier to just park your car and instead of walking, you can, hop on a bike. So I was so happy when I saw this come to Detroit. And the person behind that, she's a genius. Let's bring in Lisa Nuszkowski. She's the founder and executive director for MoGo. Thank you so much, Lisa, for being with us.
Thank you guys for having me. Glad to be here.
So give us the backstory. How'd you even come up with this?
Yeah, it was a long time in the making. So I had started working at Wayne State University in the Office of Economic Development it was 2012. And that was when bike share was just starting to pop up in cities like Chicago, like New York, other places. And so we thought this would be a really cool idea to explore for the city of Detroit. And so we convened some business and community stakeholders, and people said, you know, we're interested in this, let's learn more. So we did a feasibility study the next year and then used that to raise money, build support. And then I left the university in 2015 with their blessing to go out and launch this nonprofit organization that you see today that runs Detroit's bike share system. So we launched in May 2017 with 430 bikes at 44 stations. And then just this past year, we expanded our system by adding another 140 bikes and another 31 stations to Detroit and southern Oakland County. So it's been a really exciting 3 or 4 years for us at Bike Share in Detroit.
But don't get this wrong, because I never ask a woman her age. I went to school in the South. You don't do that. But you're young. How were you able to manage all of this? Or is part of it because when you're younger, you just jump in and you roll the dice and see how things play out?
Well, I appreciate the compliment, but I'm probably a little bit older than I look, but I'll take it. So, but no, honestly, it was, you know, while I have been the leader of this organization and our efforts, it's not done without many, many partnerships. You know, I talked about the support at Wayne State University. The Downtown Detroit Partnership has also been incredibly supportive in nurturing this idea in our organization as we have grown along the way. And then we've got our title sponsors, Henry Ford Health System and HAP. You know, their financial support makes it possible for us to have bikes all over the city of Detroit and communities in Oakland County, and many other sponsors and partners. It really, you know, I think I said when we launched the system, if it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a city to build a bike share system. And so we couldn't have done it without all of those partners and supporters. And that's been true even as, you know, even as we've expanded into the suburbs, you know, the partnerships with Ferndale, Royal Oak, Oak Park, Berkeley, Huntington Woods. It's just been really great to see communities be interested in bringing new mobility options to their areas and supporting what we do. So it's been really wonderful.
I'm really surprised it wasn't in the suburbs prior to being in the city of Detroit, because walkable communities are so popular right now. But with that, the one thing I think is so great about what you guys are doing is it's not just about the downtown Detroit area. We hear so much about Detroit's comeback, but as someone who has spent more than her fair share in the neighborhoods, they feel like they've been forgotten. And the beautiful thing I think about this is that you guys made it a point to put these bikes in the neighborhoods as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely been very important to us to make sure that this is not just for tourists and visitors who are happy to have used our system as well, but we want to make sure that people who live in the city, who work in the city, have access to affordable mobility options. And so that's why when we first launched, we made sure that we were in 10 different neighborhoods. And then we expanded last year. We added 10 stations along the Livernois and Woodward corridors in Northwest Detroit. So right around the Palmer Park Avenue of Fashion area. And so, you know, we're very proud to be in multiple places in Detroit. I think there's opportunity for other places to grow and expand our system too, but wanted to make sure that, again, we're balancing where we're putting those bikes, because we know that people have a wide range of needs to get around, and we want to make sure that we're there to serve as many of those needs as possible.
And when we talk about balancing, we'll say, because the scooters are kind of big too. A bike I can ride. The scooters are a little dangerous to me, but also when it snows, I mean, we are in Michigan. We do get winter months. You know, the scooters are a little bit harder to navigate through those first and last snowfalls. But with that, how does it actually operate on a day-to-day basis? How do you keep track of the bikes and make sure they come back to you? Because I'm thinking, hey, free bike.
Yeah, no, so I'm glad you mentioned the weather piece before I get to how we run it. So we are 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365, because we know that well, obviously ridership is much higher when it's a beautiful spring or summer day. We know that people have mobility needs year round, and so we want to make sure that we made our bikes available to people throughout the year. But we work with an operator. Our partner is called Shift Transit, and so they are the ones, if you've seen our MoGo vans out driving around town, picking up bikes at stations that are full and adding bikes to stations that are empty. We've got tracking devices on each of the bikes, and so we know exactly who has them out, who took a bike from which station, where they returned it to. If they didn't return it, we'll be in touch with you. And everybody has to, well, most people who reserve a bike or check a bike out through one of the stations have to have a credit card on file with us. So we have that as a way to follow up with folks if we don't hear from them, and we can charge them for the bike itself. But to be honest, we haven't had a huge issue with that. And I think people understand that this is a shared resource for everyone. And the more members that we've gotten over the years, the more sort of supporters and people who want to take care of the system. So we'll get Good Samaritans, call us if they see, hey, we saw a bike that, didn't have anyone, near it. Can you, make sure to send somebody over here to pick it up? So we've gotten a lot of support from our members in the community as well.
So how does that work? Because do you have to have a credit card? Because we do know a lot of people don't have credit cards. And I'm also thinking about, parents who maybe don't have cars or their cars broke down. And so maybe they want their kid to ride the bike to school. How does that side work? Or you need to have something on file?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we actually do have a cash payment option. So when you're going on and signing up for a pass online, you can just check a box to say, I want to pay with cash. And then what we'll do is we'll send you a barcode that you can either print out, or you could bring your phone to any Family Dollar, 7-Eleven, or CVS store. They'll scan that barcode, you'll pay them the amount of the pass, and then your account gets credited, and then you're able to ride. So we don't have a credit card on account for you. At least we know who you are, right? We know that we've sent you this information, we have contact information for you, so we're at least be able to track people in that way. And then that's really nice. It's been a good complement to our Access Pass program. So we do have a $5 annual pass for anybody who receives state benefits. So that's Medicaid, Healthy Michigan programs, cash or food assistance. And so you can go online, sign up for a $5 annual pass, enter in your 9-digit state case ID number. You'll automatically qualify for that reduced fee pass. And so we've got over a quarter of our long-term riders, our member riders, who have that Access Pass. So we know that it's serving the needs of people, of a range of incomes throughout the region.
We're talking with Lisa Nuszkowski. She's the founder and executive director for MoGo. And that is a great thing because while it is a great convenience, especially for people who are, coming in from the suburbs, they don't want to haul their bike into Detroit, stuff it in the back of their car, or it won't fit in my smart car. I'm sorry. But with that too, you can go down, you can rent one, you can enjoy Detroit, the DeQuinder Cut. But the more important thing, we know there are so many people within the city of Detroit, they do not have reliable transportation. And part of that has to do with the fact that insurance is so high. It's very costly to have a car within the city of Detroit. So this is a great option for so many people within the city of Detroit, Lisa.
Yeah, and we're also really fortunate to have just recently gotten a grant through a national partnership called the Better Bike Share Partnership. And we got a grant for a couple of years that will support us working with SMART and DDOT to improve the bike bus connection. And so again, to your point, not everybody has access to a personal vehicle. And so if people are relying on public transit, we know bike share is not going to serve every single transportation need, right? It's really good for shorter distances, but not if you're, commuting 15, 20 miles. And so we're going to be working closely with those two transit providers to figure out how we can get more of their riders using bike share and how we can get more people who are using bike share to use transit as well. So we're very excited for that over the next couple of years.
What's the cost of this? It was pretty low. I just used my credit card, so I think it was pretty low.
Yeah, so we've got several different options. If you're just coming to ride for a one-off kind of thing, we offer a pay-as-you-go option, which is $1 to unlock the bike and then 25 cents a minute while you're using the bike. Or if you want to have a little bit more time, you can buy a 2-hour time block for $18, and you can spread that out over as much as much time as you would like. And then if you're a member, you can buy a $20 monthly pass, and you can renew that for as many months as you'd like. Or if you want to buy an annual pass to have access all year round, that's $90. And then again, we have the $5 access pass, which is an annual pass for anybody with state benefits. So a wide range of options based on how people want to use the system.
That's so great. And I will say nothing against the Q line, but when the Q line started, they did kind of a test one of the local news outlets, I think it was Deadline Detroit, where they had someone walk, someone rent the bike, and another person take the queue line. The bike person obviously made it to their destination the quickest, then the person walking, and then lastly the queue line.
I remember that competition because actually the person who was riding a MoGo bike finished second, and they finished second because they didn't pay attention to the instructions, and they rode the bike on Woodward and got the tire caught in the streetcar track, and actually and fell. They were okay, some scrapes and bruises, nothing serious, but it just underscores that you have to be very careful around those tracks. And so, so we like to think that we're a fast, flexible way to get around, but we definitely want people to do that safely.
Exactly. I will say I was excited. I remember I was working downtown at the time when the queue line started, and we were like, oh, this is a great way to, pub crawl along up and down Woodward, but it's so slow, it just doesn't work. So walk. That's a good way, or ride a bike.
We need a range of options, right? And I understand that the queue line is going to be restarting up later this year, so hopefully we'll look for more to come with that.
So we're speaking with Lisa Nuszkowski. She's the founder and executive director of MoGo. With that, Lisa, I love your background, and you are so young, but you're also passionate about the city of Detroit. What advice do you have to younger people coming out of college that maybe want to, find their way in life?
Yeah, I'm very grateful. I came to Detroit after finishing graduate school. I did an internship here in the city and moved here. And so I've been here for about 17 years now. And I've just been incredibly fortunate to have found a community with just wonderful people. And I think that the biggest piece of advice I would give for people who are looking to move to Detroit or get involved with things in Detroit is to really come and understand the history of the city, listen to people who have lived here. I know that there's a lot of excitement and interest in some of the new things that are happening in the city, but to really be here and I think be a good resident, to be a good neighbor, to be a good supporter of efforts, we have to take the time to understand the context of the city and sort of the challenges of where we are, and I think the opportunities that we have to build together and then to work together to get to those outcomes. And so I think that that's one of the reasons that we've been relatively successful with MoGo, is that we've really tried to spend a lot of time connecting with the people who live in the communities that we serve, so we can understand their needs, provide a service that can work for them, and something that hopefully they feel proud of and excited to have in their community as well. And so that's generally speaking the advice I would give to somebody who's interested in coming to Detroit.
You're listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. Thank you so much for going on this adventure, but providing such a valuable service to Detroit. And again, this is for everyone, but I love that you did take the time to learn and listen from the people that have lived in the city for so many years. There are so many unsung heroes within the city of Detroit. So thank you for taking them into account as you built this as well. Anything maybe we didn't talk about that you want to add before we say goodbye?
No, just that we're excited for the weather to be warming up again and already starting to see more riders out and about. And just to let folks know that, we've been open throughout the pandemic because we know people still need to get around, or if you just need the opportunity for some exercise, physical activity, we're doing our part to keep bikes and stations clean, so we continue to implement all of those COVID safety protocols, and just want to encourage everybody to do their part by riding safely, continue to wear a mask, encourage everybody to get the vaccine, wash your hands, and go hop on a bike and go out and enjoy the beautiful spring here.
The beautiful spring, and also get in shape, get some exercise. This is a great way and a great time to do that as well. Thank you again, Lisa. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate the opportunity.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. Still a lot to get to in the second hour of the show. When we come back, we'll be speaking with the CEO of MedNetOne Health Solutions. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Wearing a mask is more than protection. It's a bridge to better days. The path back to celebrations with family. Nights out on the town with friends. Game days with your favorite sports teams. And the thrill of live concerts. But until we can all get the COVID-19 vaccine and build community immunity, which will take time, we all need to continue to stay careful. Because Michigan's recovery is depending on you, and so are your family, friends, and neighbors. So even after you're vaccinated, wear a mask, avoid large gatherings, and social distance. One day in the near future, we will all be able to put this pandemic behind us. But until then, spread hope, not COVID. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Welcome back to the second hour of the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in the studios alongside Mr. Tyler Keefe. As a reminder, you can always catch us Civic Center TV, Birmingham area municipal access. If you have cable, thank you. You can tune us in. If you have Comcast, you'll find us on channel 1599 on AT&T. You can also listen to us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. Tyler, do you still have a transistor radio?
I do not. No, not with me at my house. I know my dad does, and I believe my stepdad and my mom do, but I do not have a regular one. We have one in the studio, of course, but that's about as close as I get.
It's like the old school transistor radio.
Sure.
My husband still has one because that's what he uses to listen to his ball games on. And he walks around, and I'm always like, there's an app for that. You can listen to it on
It's not quite the same as listening to a ball game on the radio with the radio.
Right, it might be a little clearer.
Sure, it's probably a lot clearer, but it's just not the same. It's the nostalgia more than anything.
But you can tune us into the radio if you driving around in your car, or even if you still want to have an old school transistor radio with the long antenna that you have to replace the batteries every day.
I know a lot of people that walk around with listening to us with a boombox on their shoulder. I know a whole total of 0 people that do that.
Hey, so we are a year into this pandemic now. I'm hoping that one of the things that sticks around post-pandemic is telehealth, because we have seen that explode throughout this time, and it really is a needed option for so many people as we continue into what we hope is going to be the backside of this pandemic. With us now to talk so much more, let's bring in Ewa Matuszewski. I'm going to mess up your last name. Just go ahead and say it.
It's Matuszewski.
Matuszewski.
Very good.
Matuszewski. That is so, while it's difficult growing up with a hard last name to spell, it had to have been fun to be able to pronounce it for people all the time.
So it was, and I will also add this, my husband's last name is more difficult than mine, so I never took his last name because the way it's spelled and the way it's pronounced, you'd never guess it.
Well, I will say my legal last name is Dahl, D-U-L-L. I mean, that was so horrible growing up with the last name Dahl. It's short for Dolinsky, so, yours is better.
Another Polish girl, though.
Yeah, my mom's side is Irish, my dad's side was Polish. And when they came over, in the old days, the story goes that when you got off the boat, they would ask you for your name, and if they couldn't say it or spell it, then they would shorten it. So Dolinsky got shortened into Dol. So that's how the story goes.
Great story.
Yeah, but it's horrible growing up with the last name Dahl, let me tell you. That's why we changed it. So, but it's great to have you with us. And, I love what you guys do there. But tell us more, for those not familiar with MedNetOne, tell us more about the work that you do.
I think it's really important to lay the foundation about the transformation that we've undergone. We started out simply as an organization of physicians that were contracting with managed care organizations, and this is back in the previous century. But as we evolved and transformed, we began to identify areas where we really began to include patients into our work. So we do a lot of care management activities now, do an awful lot of telehealth, especially for the behavioral health side. And what started out as simply an idea has now really picked up and grown tremendously within our organization of close to 1,000 providers.
Do you think this is going to stick around post-pandemic? Because they had to tweak the rules and regulations to allow for this to happen, correct?
Yeah, they did have to tweak those rules to meet what we would call HIPAA guidelines, the privacy and the security guidelines. My only concern is access. We are talking about physical access to a physician or to a healthcare professional's practice. In our instance, there are so many people that still don't have access to Wi-Fi. They don't have access to computers, don't have access to healthcare professionals that might be bilingual. So that if you're only speaking Polish, for example, how would I be able to have that without having an interpreter with me? So we'll work through the kinks, but huge strides. The state has really gone ahead and stepped up to the plate as well. The professional societies are backing what we're doing in the telehealth world, and the payers are allowing for the telephonic support and the virtual support of patient care.
Ewa, I wonder, how do you guys help navigate this crazy world, the healthcare industry, which is so connected to the insurance world as well?
So you have to be adept and you have to adopt. And there are days where you stop what you're doing and you pivot and move in a different direction. But there are some wonderful relationships that have been developed over the years with major payers because they are truly caring about the community now. They're caring about the patients that are not only in their product, but also those that might not have access to the type of insurance that many of us have.
So we all know doctors, or if you have your own family physician, and it's been frustrating for them, just the change in the healthcare industry overall. Do you think this is going to be one way that at least they can check in on some of their patients that maybe they couldn't do so before? Just you only have 24 hours in a day.
Yeah, and I have to come out my due diligence here. I usually look and see what my husband does because he is a family physician, and pretty much everyone in our world is in primary care. So true, there aren't 24 hours in a day, but telehealth isn't going to resolve everything. When you're ill, you want to have someone there physically sitting next to you. You want someone basically holding your hand. There are touches that occur in healthcare that will not occur in the telehealth or the virtual world. And that's pretty evident during the time of the pandemic, where you're bringing a screen into an ICU so you can at least see that person, but it's having that person sitting next to you because you can smell them, you can see them, you can touch them. That just won't happen in the virtual world.
Yeah, and there are ups and there are downs to both sides of this world. How does this look with the insurance side when we're now doing more and more telehealth? Are the doctors getting paid for that? Because before, if I understand it right, and I know every state is different, they weren't necessarily getting their time compensated for telehealth visits.
That is correct, and that did change dramatically within a month of the pandemic coming into the world here. So in April of 2020, the insurance companies stepped up and said, you know what, we're going to be paying the same amount, reimbursing physicians the same amount for virtual visits as we have for those in-person visits. And that was really an important step for us because we were able to pivot very quickly and train our physicians on virtual physical exams. And so they weren't doing the exams, the patient was, but they were able to walk through the process of, show me the elbow, show me this, go ahead, move the screen in closer. And so physical exams are actually becoming the state of the art acceptance these days.
Wow, it really is amazing how technology has changed our world. We're talking with Ewa Matuszewski. She's the CEO of MedNetOne Health Solutions. We're thinking, even if we went through this pandemic 20 years ago, we wouldn't be able to do all of this. I think we were still on the big cell phones, back in that time, definitely didn't have the pictures and the internet that we have now. Remember the AOL dial-up?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine if that was happening now? But with that, can you talk to us a little bit more about the security measures behind the scenes? Because we do know that there are security issues and hacks that are happening now. because so many more people are online. Has that been an issue within the healthcare industry or not so much?
So technically, we are very reliant on our EHR, electronic healthcare vendors. We depend on them to be our really good partners to ensure that the privacy and security standards are met. But with that being said, organizations like ours do periodic tests to make sure that our systems are unpenetrable. So there is a lot of that happening in the community. And I also have to mention that there still are quite a number of physicians that are on paper charts. The entire world has not moved to electronic health records. And I also have to come to the defense of those physicians that are using paper charts, because their patient engagement and their quality scores are sometimes better than what we in the electronic world are able to produce. But I can say this, we always worry about that penetration because we have an entire history of a patient, longitudinal history, often from birth all the way through to end of life. And if you're a hacker, you can get some really good information from those types of records.
Yeah, so many people are after your Medicaid and Medicare number. I know that my primary care doctor, he's been electronic forever. He was one of the first doctors in the state of Michigan to go electronic. So he's been an advocate. But I will say it is a little bit nicer when they print off your paperwork because you can actually read it. Mm-hmm. When you guys are doctors, do they teach you how to give you a handwriting lesson in chicken scratch?
I think they do. I can say that having electronic health records has been a godsend, especially when you're looking at medications and the directions for medications. So from that perspective, we are absolutely thrilled that more and more physicians and healthcare professionals have moved into that electronic health world. And I have to add one thing here. We are very focused on primary care physicians and medical doctors. Right now, many groups are moving into doing some great work with behavioral health organizations. To really have a whole person chart is so significant, especially now. You've got someone that's depressed, that has anxiety issues, or that has domestic issues. You can now take a look at that entire chart and be able to comment on it and even earmark it for future outreach, quicker outreach than perhaps in the past.
And Eva, that seems like if you're a doctor, that's a great place to be because you're getting to see the entire patient. I know some doctors are even going where they're open now to more holistic revenues as well because they're trying to treat the entire patient. Do you think this is just going to be the way we start to operate going forward?
It's crucial to enter into what I call the patient-centered medical home model because you're truly looking at that patient in a holistic way. You're able to identify what their needs are, almost forecast what tomorrow will look like in their health journey. And many of us are looking at what we call upstream care. Let's go ahead and stop disease processes from occurring or speeding up. So let's stop them as quickly as we can and do an outreach to those patients for their diet, their nutrition, their exercise, and whatever else they might need, and envelop them with a team. Many practices now have very good teams of healthcare professionals right in their practice to work with those patients.
Eva, if we could talk for a second just about the healthcare industry as a whole with more and more students. Like it seems that we are possibly here in the United States headed towards a crisis and getting enough qualified individuals to want to go into medicine right now, and especially diversification within those numbers as well. Your thoughts on that?
My thinking process always goes to the primary care community. We are in such need of, I call them the holistic individuals, because they treat the entire body. They are also able to go ahead and work with individuals through their behavioral health crises, let's say. And it's the primary care physicians that we're missing. When you drive down the freeway and you look at a billboard, it tells you about urgent care and emergency rooms, and I've got the best heart surgeon, and I've got the best this and best that. It would be great to see billboards that say, you know, we've got really great primary care physicians. Start your healthcare journey there. And the more we focus on primary care, number one, the cost will be reduced because they're able to really provide whole person care, and then they know where to refer the individuals to for specialized care.
That's a great aspect to look at. I saw a 60 Minutes episode where they were looking at students that were going into medical school, and primary care was one of the areas that we are struggling right now as a nation because it's not the high cost. We think doctors make all this money, but we have to understand the cost of medical school right now is just outrageous.
Well, and not only that, but if we're looking at what profession is really pushing those primary care practices, I have to say that the field of osteopathy, the osteopathic schools are producing more graduates that are moving into family medicine residency programs than the allopathic profession is. When I take a look at newbies coming out, it's really impressive to see the number of individuals saying, I've matched with the family medicine residency program, and I'm going to stay home. Michigan, the MSU-COM, Michigan State University College of Osteopathic Medicine, probably retains most of their students, more students than the other schools of medicine do in Michigan. So I have to throw out a huge thank you to them for really helping us support primary care.
That's great. Do you think we're going to get to the point where our primary care doctors are going to be able to administer the vaccine for COVID-19?
Oh, you know what? You're asking me a very loaded question.
That's not easy. I trust my doctor. I like my doctor.
So I have to come to the defense of both sides. My organization is a CDC-approved distributor of the vaccine. And we understand what the shortfalls are in the distribution process. It's easier to send to pharmacies or to send to, let's say, the local health departments because it's a constrained place.
Right.
The pharmacies probably get theirs from the Federal Reserve. It's central to let's say, one pharmacy chain. They push it out to their pharmacies. We don't have such a process with physicians. Physician organizations do. If you were to say to me today, Eva, I'm sending you 5,000 vaccines. Can you get them to your PCPs? I can say yes, because I would then not break the chain of distribution. I would know who's getting it, and I would be accountable for ensuring there was no waste. And that's why the way it's set up right now, it's just difficult for the government to do. And I wish they would have included primary care physicians in the planning and implementation phase, but that's behind us. We need to look at what we can do tomorrow. We're doing a lot of pop-up clinics. This week, we're doing a pop-up clinic for the Korean community in Northville. We're doing one for the Chinese community, and we have gone ahead and succeeded in working with a lot of at-risk communities to help them.
Well, Eva, we so appreciate all the work that you and all of your team members are doing to try to help keep us safe during this pandemic. Anything we didn't ask that you want to add before we say goodbye?
Yes, I would like to say this. If you have the opportunity of getting a vaccine, whether it's J&J, Moderna, or Pfizer, just unroll your sleeve and take it, because we need everyone to have that vaccine. It's for the good of all.
It really is. And I think it opens up to the public starting the first week of April. And so more and more people will start to get vaccinated here in the state of Michigan. We've been with Ewa Matuszewski. She's the CEO of MedNetOne Health Solutions. Thank you again for your time. We so appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we come back, we'll be joined with the Chief of Police for the fine city of Royal Oak.
Quitting smoking can improve your health, but it also protects your loved ones from secondhand smoke. Did you know there's no risk-free level of exposure to secondhand smoke? Smoke from cigarettes, e-cigs, and hookah can travel through ventilation systems and harm those around you. So clear the air and stop secondhand smoke. Call the Michigan Tobacco Quit Line at 1-800-784-8669. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Great to have you with us here on the Megacast. Welcome back to the show. Just about 40 minutes left in the show. The 2 hours flies by, Tyler.
Yeah, always does. Always flies by. It helps that we have some really interesting people to speak to throughout the 2 hours that help it move forward really quickly.
One of my favorite places to go, Royal Oak, which I will say, though, during the pandemic, I haven't been there quite as often. I love to go to the farmer's market there on the weekend. But the supplies have been low right now because of the whole pandemic. It's just been a little bit of a weird, crazy time, but the work does not stop. I was really happy to see a few weeks ago when I went there, it looks like the police department has moved into their new facilities. I'm telling you what, anyone who had to ever go into the old Royal Oak Police Department, it was a dive. With us now, let's bring in the Chief of Police, Corrigan O'Donohue, for the fine city of Royal Oak. Thank you for being with us.
Glad to be here.
You guys deserved a new police department. When did you move in?
We moved in about in mid-February. So we've been in there, about a month and a half now.
So with that move, what was moving like during the middle of a pandemic?
It was a challenge. We had that big snowfall, and we really got in like 1 week before the big snowfall. So that was, one thing that worked out for us. But we've been in the old building since 1964, and that's a lot of years of building up stuff. And we had to go through it all, figure out what needed to be moved, what we could get rid of, and it was really, the move itself it was actually kind of fun. All the guys, the men and women of the Royal Police Department, they all pitched in. It was, kind of like a moving day at your house, I guess. It was kind of a fun vibe when we moved.
So, but it is a little bit of a pain in the butt. I worked with the ATF for a few years. Our Chicago office changed locations, and I got to help out just a little bit, but I was very happy that I wasn't their main PIO, because I got to dash back to Detroit and be like, hey, that's up to you to move all those boxes and all that paper. It's amazing what you collect. So what is the process like when you guys move from one location to the other? Because, when it comes to a law enforcement agency, there is also, a chain that has to be followed when it comes to evidence.
100%. And one of our biggest challenges in the old station was the evidence and property room. It was, think about, we've been collecting evidence since, like I said, 1964. So although we had some movers help us out, we couldn't have movers help us out with any of our evidence or that kind of property. So we had officers show up dressed to move, and then we had to count for every piece of evidence as it went from one building to the next. And our property officers, we have 2 part-time property officers. They did a fantastic job of organizing it, and we were able to get it done in one day, get everything moved. They had a great plan, and it worked great.
So, Chief, I don't know if you guys had to go through this, but when we were moving, the movers had to go through a background check because it's law enforcement sensitive, even though they weren't, exposed directly to some of the information, but they couldn't have felonies. Mm-hmm. So we had to switch moving companies quite often, trying to find one with employees without felonies.
Well, we're lucky in the fact that we're not really moving furniture. So our new building has all new furniture. All the sensitive files and things like that, the officers move themselves. So the movers themselves didn't have to go to quite that level of screening, but they were supervised the entire time by law enforcement. So, you know, the moving company was great. They did a great job in how they got us moved. The things they moved, but really most of the stuff was moved by just, you know, police officers, detectives, and the civilian personnel within the department.
So it's good to see that this has finally happened, but I will say it seems like this has been talked about for the past 20 years or so. But now, so technology is so vital to law enforcement. So when you're moving locations, how much does that play into the design and the importance of what you're doing to help you assist in the job that you need to do, which is ultimately keep the people of Royal Oak safe?
Well, that's a great question. When we were designing, first had the idea of moving forward to this new building. I've been working on this for over 6 years, and showing how our current building was built at a time when the only technology was a telephone. You know, the only you know, the dispatch was like a radio system and a telephone, and that was it. And we kind of had some fun with it with some town hall meetings where we found old photos of, you know, from the 50s, 60s, and 70s of how law enforcement was done. And it's quite different now. We have one officer whose grandfather was in some of those photos. So that, you know, we kind of had some fun with that. But the new building has a lot of great technology in it. You know, the good thing is you don't have to pick up and carry technology. You know, a lot of it moves for you. So but our old building was such a challenge, and this new building, every aspect of the building is purposeful in the design. And you know, I think it's important to point out, while we were designing the building with the architects, we developed a system so everybody within the department got a say and got input in the building. So as the building would kind of take shape, we had every officer review the plans on a weekly basis, and then they'd have to put comments. So everyone really, the people who used the building really got a say in how it was developed. So it's an extremely efficient building. I like to say it's a beautiful building that's designed for a police officer to spend the least amount of time in it, because they're able to be on the road. They're not tied up with station details or things that slowed them down from getting out on the road and doing their job.
And that's good to know, because it really is those little things, the nuances that the people working the job each and every day know more so than anyone else. The good thing that's going on there in your city of Royal Oak, crime is down 20% throughout the pandemic. What do you contribute that to?
Well, this is, like for everybody, this is a year like no one's experienced before. And, you know, we've seen in Royal Oak really for the last 10 years, reductions in crime almost every single year, pretty substantial reductions. This last year, though, it's a little bit different. You know, restaurants were closed, people weren't going to work, people weren't having parties, the things that might trigger some sort of, I guess maybe a negative experience with or interaction with the police. A lot of those things just didn't happen. And so that lack of activity is the single biggest factor. You know, so that's what I attribute most of it to.
We're talking with Corrigan O'Donohue. He's the chief of police for the fine city of Royal Oak. You've been a member of the Royal Oak Police Department for a long time now. I think when I met you, you may have been detective, lieutenant, I forget. It's been eons ago. But with that, though, how has policing changed over just the last 10 years, 20 years?
Well, like I said, I'm coming up on my 29th year, so it's changed a lot. And, you know, you hear a lot this year about police reform, and I'm here to tell you, we've been reforming ourselves for the 29 years I've been in the job. You know, the Royal Oak Police Department, we are staffed with the best men and women in the business, and the kind of mindset is a little bit different, where when I started, it was very militaristic, very enforcement heavy, and the men and women getting into law enforcement now and the way we do our job now is much more focused on, we do enforcement, of course, but much more focused on, hey, let's help people. Let's be, sometimes it's not always the enforcement end that you want to focus on. It's what can we do to make our community better? And we tell our officers, you every day you get an opportunity to make a really significant and positive impact in someone's life. Every single day. It's the only job that you really have that. Never miss those opportunities.
And we know within every department there are those bad eggs. With every industry, we know there were bad reporters. We know there are bad doctors. We know there are bad, postal workers. And one thing I have found through the years, it is typically other officers that would be the ones that would come to you as a reporter to alert, to try to address that issue. But now that we are hearing so much about reform, is it getting harder for you to be able to recruit quality people and diverse people as well?
Yes. There's just less people interested in going into law enforcement right now. We've been very lucky within Royal Oak. We're fully staffed currently. We've got the caliber of officer that's coming in to this job that we've got in Royal Oak right now is better than when I started. I'm not just saying that. You might think, oh, he's the chief. Of course he's going to say that, but I'm telling you, we've got the best men and women in the business in the Royal Oak Police Department. But the pool of applicants is very, very shallow. There's just a lot of people unwilling to go into this line of work, and that's been a challenge for us. So. It's one of the many challenges we're trying to overcome and deal with. And, one of my jobs is to convince people that, this is still a great job. It's a very honorable profession. We enjoy tremendous community support, but also you said something about like the bad eggs, and, you're required to do this job the right way, and I'm not going to make excuse for bad behavior, no matter who it is. And if it's a police officer engaged in bad behavior, that's part of my job is to deal with that, effectively. And, it does happen. It happens much more infrequently than it used to. I can promise you that.
Well, the one thing that all of us are subject to, the camera. Every single person out there has a cell phone camera, and people are shooting video, and you have to know and understand that every single day, whatever you're doing, you could be caught on video cameras. But we also know the camera doesn't always tell the full story. When it comes to police relations, I know there was an incident, I believe was it last year, with an African-American male who was someone called in to say that they felt like it was suspicious activity, and how your department handled it. I thought you guys did a good job, but there is still that learning curve, those first few hours, those first few days, which can make it hard because of social media and video that's out there.
Well, I would tell you, it does make it difficult. We have no problem with the camera. I have a big problem with edited footage, and
yes.
that's that incident started with somebody providing a narrative while they were live streaming it that wasn't necessarily accurate, but that's a perception that moves out on social media. So, from a police department, we were able to react very quickly in immediately releasing the 911 call, immediately addressing the police officers, and finding out exactly what happened. We released all the video, and anyone who took the time to look at all of that had a much different perspective than maybe their initial view. And I would say that's our challenge. Is there's an initial, people want to get that initial story out, of that initial footage out, and it really doesn't take a lot of time, but taking the time to okay, what actually happened? Let me look at this objectively. I quite frankly, with no offense, I don't think the media does a great job of that, because we've been willing, to speak to the media, to release all that stuff. But obviously, the media can't show 40 minutes of video as part of their clip. They've got to summarize it. So that's kind of the challenge. But pointing out that, that information is on our website, available to anybody who wants to look at it.
So the good thing, spring is in the air. Hope is in the air. Vaccines are flowing right now. Royal Oak is always a popular destination for the summertime. How has it been going for you and members of your team right now? Mask mandates, any issues, or people really starting to comply? Because we're a year into this now.
We're a year into it. It's the challenges. I think the ebb and flow of things, where things are open, they're not open. Although we're anxious to get Royal Oak back to what it was, hopefully we're on the tail end of this thing and we'll be there soon. You have a couple of issues here and there, and we try to address them as effectively as we can. But, we had St. Patrick's Day in Royal Oak used to be a big thing. And it was last week, and this year really wasn't what it used to be. I think most people understand and are making this, informed and common sense decisions for themselves. So, although we saw a little bit of uptick in activity, it wasn't nearly what we've had in previous years.
I may or may not have participated in a few St. Patrick's Day bar pub crawls throughout St. Patrick's Day there before. Hey, Chief, before we let you go, what is your budget looking like right now? Are you guys sitting pretty nice, or are you based on sales tax and revenues from the downtown area, or are you based on the incomes of the housing? Because housing is crazy right now.
Housing is crazy, and Royal Oaks, but you're going to get into numbers, and not my strength, but right now I think we're okay. Some of our revenue funds aren't really what they used to be. Obviously, the parking fund in Royal Oak is a kind of a major fund. We haven't had people coming down the way they used to, so there's some shortages there. I think generally cities lag about a year or two behind these kind of down cycles. So we don't really know where we're going to end up in the end. But if we got time, we're starting a new parking project, or potentially starting a new parking project. If we got time, I'd like to discuss it a little bit.
Absolutely. Is it going to help me avoid tickets?
100%. And, people think, parking meters, who cares? But it is actually pretty exciting if you can get excited about parking meters. We're looking at a new system, and we're in the process of vetting it, but it's showing a lot of potential where we could take all our surface lots and street meter parking. It'll do a really cool system. It's called the MPS system, where it gives you a lot of opportunities to pay the parking meters. You can pull up, and then when you leave, pay whatever you stayed for. You can pay, and then if you stay over, you can shore up that meter. Or a real cool feature is through their website, you can set up like an account. So you pull up, you don't have to do anything. It automatically takes just the amount of time you were there at the meter. We found out that somewhere around 40 to 45% of the people actually pay the meters. Most people don't pay the meters, and so we want to make it really, really easy for people to do that. We want them to have a positive experience, but we also know that if we don't charge for the meters, the only way to have it, you can have available parking or you can have free parking, but you can't have both. And we want to make sure parking's available. We did a really neat community engagement within Royal Oak. We had a great participation amongst our community, and when people really understood the system, we found they were really, really overwhelmingly enthusiastic about it. So we're pretty excited. We're hoping to, have something finished for the commission and ultimately make a decision on this within the next few weeks.
And so then if it gets the go-ahead, are you looking at, is this something that could be implemented within the next few months, or would it be another year or two?
Oh no, it'd be. We're shooting for summer. We've got a big new building opening up in Royal Oak soon. The Henry Ford Health System has a 5-story new office building, and that's really going to change our daytime traffic. So we're hoping to get it in before that is fully up and running. But like you said, if you've been to Farmers Market recently, you've seen our new building, the new City Hall building. That Henry Ford Health building is going up. Will be up and running in the next few months, and then the exciting thing is we're going to have a downtown Central Park where our police department and City Hall were. So that's really going to be the jewel of the downtown, and we're really excited about that too.
Well, Chief, we so appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
I hope that parking system goes in, because parking is such a pain in the butt. I will say I go to Royal Oak more than Ferndale, because there is more surface lots in Royal Oak, but I still always end up getting a ticket, and you have to pay it in the first 10 days or that price goes up. Chief O'Donohue with us here on the Megacast. He is the police chief for the city of Royal Oak. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, Representative Brenda Lawrence will be with us here on the Megacast.
Hi, my name is Kurt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Park's COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
Great to have you with us here on the Megacast. Let's go ahead and jump into our last interview. Representative Brenda Lawrence, it's always great having you with us here on the Megacast. I have so much I want to talk to you about, but if we can kind of start off, it is Women's History Month. I want to say thank you from one woman to the other for your contribution to our community. Who has been your mentor through your life, or even historical figure that you've looked up to?
You know, obviously, I have to say my grandmother. My mom died when I was 3, and I was at age 55. My grandmother inherited a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and to see her strength and her wisdom, it was just phenomenal. I had some very defined women leaders. Shirley Chisholm, who was the first Black woman in Congress. I'm living witness. Last night we had a Zoom where we had gold medal women hockey players. We've got a vice president who is now a woman. I have the Speaker of the House who is a woman. Eleanor Roosevelt. I mean, she was before her time. So I have so many women, and I just want to say to you, having a voice in the world of media is profound. It is a time where so many young girls will look at this and say, oh, that's something I can do. And that's what's so powerful about Women's History Month, is that we have an opportunity to highlight women who are breaking so many barriers, or showing young girls that they too can have a career or use their talent and skills in some of the non-traditional areas.
And one of the important things is just find a way to mentor or lift up one another. We started a chick group with my girlfriends, and so it's like, hey, if this person is going out on this new venture, trying this, like we have someone who's writing a children's book. Okay, who can help her? Hey, we know an illustrator. Hey, I can help you with the media. Hey, I can help you with this. And we're trying to find ways just in our own little neighborhood, our own little community, to lift one another up, because we all have talents. But the sad thing is during this time, we are in the middle of the pandemic. Domestic violence numbers are skyrocketing, and I feel like sometimes we're still having these conversations.
A lot of times, often people are kind of shocked that during this pandemic, sometimes the abuser that you had the opportunity to leave during the day, excuse me.
Bless you.
Oh, thank you. People were locked in home with their abusers. The stress level and tension and mental illness, it was just elevated during this time. And unfortunately, domestic violence has more than doubled during this pandemic. And so we are still having debates about making laws to protect women from domestic violence. We just recently passed that bill through the House again. Hopefully it'll get signed into law. We passed it last year and it went to the Senate and didn't go anywhere. It is clearly an area that we need to pay attention to. And when you speak about women in the pandemic, do you realize that most of those frontline workers, domestic workers, waitresses, teachers, those are predominantly nurses, those are predominantly women. And so during this pandemic, the impact of the harm to those frontline workers and to the workforce, women have lost their jobs at a higher rate than men during this pandemic. So women, really, we need to pay attention to this and make sure. Another thing I will tell you is that women are the number one, the largest group of opening small businesses. And so during this pandemic, you know that the number of small businesses that couldn't sustain themselves and had to go out of business, it's impacting women. And so we have a lot of work to do and to lift them up and to make sure we're protecting them.
And it's going to continue. The impact of the pandemic on women will continue for years to come. We know so many women are leaving the workforce right now as well because of the pandemic. Typically, they are being forced to stay at home right now. It's too much to be able to work and raise your kids and homeschool them as well. If we can jump into, of course, we have the tragedy this week in Boulder, Colorado. The issue of gun rights is back on the front line. I feel like this is a cycle that we continue to go through here in the United States, and that when we have one of these mass shootings, the next day the conversation goes back to gun rights. Is it going to be this time that we see a change?
Every time I have hope. When John Lewis was alive, we actually led a protest and sat on the floor of the Congress begging for America and our colleagues to step up. And one thing I want to be real clear about, gun control does not take away, and what's being proposed does not take away your right to own a gun. But if you own a car in America, you must register that car and you must get a license to operate it. Why are we saying that in America, if you own a gun, you don't need to register it? You don't need to make sure that you're mentally capable of operating it, and then that you don't have a violent record, that of a restraining order or any of those things that will force you to be examined to make sure, just like we do with a car, that you're able to, operate a car and a gun. But the car is the transportation. We will take a car driving privilege away from someone who abused that right if they drink while they're driving, if they have had multiple accidents and prove that they're not capable with vision or with their motor response to operate a car. But we are forbidden to have a discussion about guns. It's so past time. The two things that are on the floor now is our background check. So when you apply for a weapon, that you will get a background check and make sure you're not a person with a restraint or just out of prison for a violent crime, or you've been arrested before for violent acts. And also, we're saying that you have to register that gun. So we know who in America owns a gun, like we do with cars, licenses to fish or to hunt.
It really is astounding. As you may remember, I worked for ATF, and I never fully grasp the level of discussion around gun control until I went to work for ATF. And there are so many nuances and so many gray areas. And you have to remember there's a difference between federal laws and state and local laws as well. And I just can't believe that we are still having this conversation all these years later, and it always is sparked by some of these national tragedies that come up. So let's hope that this time we do move past it and we help save lives. And one of the things we should understand that a lot of people are using guns for suicide as well. It's not just, shooting with strangers, but a lot of...
we lose children every year from children finding guns in homes and killing themselves, thinking it's a toy.
So there are so many other things going on in D.C. right now. Do you want to talk about the American Rescue Plan?
Yes. As you know, I'm a Democrat, and Biden ran on promises made, promises kept, and help was on the way. The way that we're rolling out vaccines right now is the time that I have felt most hopeful during this pandemic. And I'm going to coin a phrase that one of my friends who's a physician said, that we can finally get off of the pandemic highway, the COVID highway. Get off because you can take your vaccine. I'm so excited about Ford Field, because we had a nightmare. People calling, oh, you're not in my district, or you don't live in this city, and just the long lines. We have opened up a regional facility at Ford Field, free parking, free vaccines, 6,000 shots a day. You can walk up, you can call and schedule a time that's good for you. And we are so excited about that. And that's part of the rescue plan, not to mention the direct payments to the Americans' pocket. I can't tell you how many thank yous I have gotten from my constituents who say, oh my goodness, I can pay some of my bills. It takes the stress off of me from day to day. And in addition to that, more money for our small businesses. We have looked at education. In America, we know that in order for our schools to open, some of them are looking at ventilation, they're looking at smaller classrooms, and those are costs that's directly related to the cost of educating our children. There's funds that was sent there. We are just really, really excited about what we're doing with the rescue plan, and know that we've got to turn our country around.
Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence with us here on the Megacast. She represents Michigan's 14th congressional district, but on the back side of that, this is not free money. How do we pay it back? Is this going to be on the backs of our kids and their grandkids and so forth and so on?
That is the biggest concern. We knew that help was needed. We didn't have a choice with the vaccines. Understand, when you're giving away free vaccines to American people, someone had to pay for that. We are not going to get our country started again, or to be able to pay into our budget and to generate revenues unless we get the economy going. If we don't get our small businesses anchored so that they can again open their doors in the restaurants, if we don't start educating our children, we will not have a workforce that's trained and ready and able to take over. Sometimes the investment is one that is so compelling, and I will tell you, this one was one that we needed to do. We'll have to address it because money, you can't just print it. There's going to be a reckoning where we'll have to look at it. But I will tell you, I'm not embarrassed or ashamed of the fact that we stood up as a country to invest in America at a time when she is at the stretch to a point where we don't want our country to break or to fall. We have to keep it uplifted, and I'm very proud of the investment that we made.
Are you hopeful for tomorrow?
I am with the vaccine. I'm hopeful because I got to get my children back in school. I'm hopeful. You know, something is really, some people are looking at it as a negative. We have been so divided in our government, but now there's only a one number difference in the Senate. we're going to have to start working together. We're not going to be allowed to take the luxury of going in our little corner, throwing rocks across the aisle to each other. We're going to have to figure out a way to work together. And it's not going to be pretty and it's not going to be easy, but we have to take care of the American people in this country. So I am hopeful. It has been so volatile. I can tell you, I have had knots in my stomach. Think about what happened in the first month of this year. We had an insurrection, we had an impeachment, and we had an inauguration. Those are stress levels. And then to think about all of the death and all the suffering under this pandemic. So I am hopeful. I have to be, or else I wouldn't be able to put some reasoning behind how we move forward. I need that hope. And as I see the numbers, and I'm a little concerned because they're peaking again, but I'm seeing numbers of deaths going down. I'm seeing the number of people getting their vaccines. So I am hopeful.
Well, you know what? It's great to hear you say that the two sides are going to have to come together and work together, because I think so many Americans need that now more so than ever. Just about 15 seconds left here in the show, and I do want to take a moment to say congratulations. You were recently appointed to the Holocaust Memorial Council, replacing Representative Lewis. What's that mean to you?
Oh, that is so profound. I am the only African-American member on the Holocaust Commission from Congress. And I want you to know that since opening in 1993, 46 million people have visited the museum. And in 2020, 21 million people visited the website. And so that's from other countries and territories. So it's critical that the museum, which is providing education, continues. I am the founder of the Black Jewish Caucus, and fostering education and awareness against anti-Semitic activities and racism and hate in America. This museum is an excellent tool to educate and hopefully move America from this dark place that we're in right now when it comes to race relations, hatred, and violence. And so I'm proud to have another seat at the table that will allow me to work toward that goal.
Well, we always appreciate your time, and we appreciate all the work that you're doing in D.C. on behalf of all of us here in the state of Michigan. Representative Brenda Lawrence with you. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you so much. And when it comes to gun violence, I don't want another day of mourning. I don't want prayers and best wishes to the family or lowering the flags. I want action. We've got to do better than this. We are better than this.
So many people feel that same sentiment. Thank you again. That's going to wrap it up for today's edition of the show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m.